Hey, and welcome to Fit Me Turo Fitness Podcast, a podcast for people who want to get no BS information about fitness and know that fitness is about so much more than losing scale weight. It's about feeling confident in your skin and empowered in your life. I'm your host, Turo Virta, personal trainer, strength and nutrition coach, and most of all, a husband of my beautiful wife, Miriam. Each week, my guests and me will give you some no BS fitness tips and motivate you to take action in your own personal fitness journey as we talk about nutrition, exercise, mindset, personal development, and executing in life with enjoyable but still effective strategies. If your goal is to look better, feel and be strong and experience transformation from inside out, you, my friend, are in the right place. Thank you for jumping in. And now let's jump into today's episode. So most people listening to this podcast already know what to do. It's eating better, moving more, being consistent, but still they feel stuck. They start strong on Monday, and by Thursday, everything falls apart. And then they tell themselves, I just need more discipline. But what if that's not true? What if the real problem isn't what you do, but who you believe you are? And today's episode is about that, about identity, about why you keep falling back into old habits and how to finally break that cycle. I'm joined by Toby Brooks, professor, coach, and host of Becoming Undone podcast, having several books. And Toby has spent years helping people navigate life changes, rebuild themselves, and turn setbacks into something meaningful. In this conversation, we go deeper than workouts and nutrition, as we will talk about why you feel stuck even when you know exactly what to do, why willpower keeps failing you, and how to actually change in a way that lasts. So if you have ever felt like, I know what to do, but I just can't stick to it, this episode is for you. So let's get into it. Toby, first of all, thank you so much for taking your valuable time and coming to my show. Would you, before we started talking about, just tell a little bit about yourself, just the normal things as a person, where you are living, how is your family?
Sure.
And
Yeah, Taro, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. I am in Waco, Texas, and I'm a professor. I'm a dad of two adulting children. My daughter just graduated from college. She's actually an opera vocal performance major, getting ready to start grad school.
oh, nice.
And our son is a sophomore mathematics major. So they grew up in the same home, same parents, but two decidedly
Very,
different paths. Probably the proudest thing I mean, I'm so proud of them in so many ways, but it's really kind of cool because they both, I'm in Texas and that's a big state, and being all
yeah.
state in Texas is a big deal. My daughter was all state in choir and my son was all state in baseball. I was a basketball player. And when I talked about having kids, I dreamed of having, an all-state volleyball player and maybe an all-state basketball player. It didn't work out that way, but I'm happier with the way it did.
Yeah,
Uh,
I guess you can never uh, tell what is going to happen, and it's until they do whatever they enjoy doing. It's that's the most important thing, right?
yeah. Yeah, and so aside from that, I also am a podcaster. Previously, was an athletic trainer and strength coach at the professional and Division One, and kind of all over levels. My wife is a counselor, and now that I'm kind of entering into the coaching ranks, we talk a lot about the difference between counseling and kind of overcoming pathology and trauma, and then
Mhm.
coaching, where you kind of take the healthy and turn it into more productive. And so it's been quite a ride, but thankful to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Awesome, awesome. So I want to get right into it because most people listening know exactly what they should do. They should eat better, move more, be consistent, but they still feel stuck. Toby, from your experience, why does this happen?
That's a great question. And it was probably best explained to me by my high school basketball coach. He said, this stuff is dead simple, but it's not easy. And what he meant by that was we know what to do, just like you said. Like if I want to be fitter, I need to fuel better. I need to move
Mm,
more. I need to do a series of things. And in that way, success can become broken down into a discrete list of to-dos. Today, I'm going to log what I eat. I'm going to monitor my protein intake. I'm going to get 10,000 steps. I'm going to lift some weights. It's a to-do list, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the challenge becomes where the simple turns into the not so easy is in the execution. And I always say strategic and purpose, relentless in pursuit, better every day. The strategy is the easy part. Breaking down my end result, the outcome that I'm looking for, whether that's aesthetic goals, body composition, performance goals, whatever those are, I've got an end result outcome that I'm after. And I can reverse engineer that. But the challenge is in the strategic and pursuit. What do I do when I wake up on a morning and there's just enough rain on the road that I don't want to go for my run? For me, I've recognized that there are some barriers that if I can get through that barrier, I'll do what it was that I was maybe wanting or maybe not wanting to do. So for me, if I can get my gym clothes on, I'll work out. If I can put myself in that space, the workout comes automatically. So the challenge isn't lifting the weight. The challenge is getting my workout gear on and getting in front of that squat rack. So if you recognize where kind of the sticking points are and you can just summon enough energy to get through that sticking point, it almost comes automatically once you get past that. So it's a little mental trick that we can work on
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. If I've got a paper to write, maybe the biggest challenge is I get my laptop on and I've got a cup of something to sip on and I've got the music playing. That's the hard part. Do the hard part. One of my mentors says, do the simple things, and in some ways he would say, kill the easy things. And what we do when we're able to do that, things that are fairly straightforward, if we can knock those out mentally, now we've got success, and success tends to build on itself and it starts to roll and we start to do all the right things. The sad thing is the same could be said for actions that we don't want to do. And if I hit that snooze bar three times in the morning, I've already set the stage that I told myself I was going to get up at 6:30. I've already failed. And then if I don't make my
Mm-hmm.
bed, I told myself I was going to make my bed. And now just as success can build on itself, failure can build on itself. And so choosing that one step at a time is kind of an actionable way to make sure that works in your favor.
Yeah. Is it then like really like those are very good points, and I definitely recognize myself and many people who I work with that they know, and often it's getting like maybe trying to get like I love that what you said about easy, taking those kind of easy things first and then getting into those like kind of harder ones, and but then is it really like about, because many people think that they need more discipline. Is it really about discipline, or is something deeper going on?
Yeah, I would even take it a step further back. Many people that are the New Year's resolution crowd, for instance, they'll
Mm.
say, "Oh, I wish I had your motivation." And
Hmm.
they'll start with motivation. And I kind of hate when people pin their hopes and dreams on motivation, because motivation
Hmm.
does come and go. There are days when I definitely want to get outside and do a run, or days I definitely feel like I need to lift something heavy today. And that's a high motivation day. Well, there are also low motivation days. Maybe I didn't sleep well, or I didn't eat well, or I've got a big project at work, and that motivation wanes. Discipline is consistent. And I would say that for most folks, if you're able to cultivate discipline and you're able to habitualize the steps to your success, okay? So I would start with the end goal. What is it you want to do? If you're training for a marathon, okay, that's a great goal. Now let's break that down. What's it going to take for me to get from where I'm at in terms of my fitness and my mental preparation to run a marathon? I've never ran a marathon. I ran a
Hmm.
10K. I was training for a half. That's kind of the baby steps into distance running, where every
Hmm.
time you finish one, you want to do the next length, right? I also had a goal of bench pressing 315 pounds and running a 10K on the same day without stopping. Like,
Hmm.
that's kind of a dumb goal, but what's it going to take to do that? That's kind of some hybrid athleticism. I need
Yeah.
strength and I need endurance, and those things tend to come at the cost of one another. And so it really does take discipline to do that. But if I've mapped the plan, the strategic and purpose for me is the hard part. The relentless in pursuit becomes a checkbox. It literally becomes, if my goal is to bench 315 and run a 10K, I've got to run on Wednesday. Did I check that box or not? And I use a habit tracker, and it will streak things. And there are ways that you can kind of incentivize your ability to follow your plan. But I'm an analytics guy. So I want to see at the end of the week, what percent of the things I said I was going to do was I successful in completing. One of my favorite motivational or discipline quotes is, yesterday you said tomorrow. Yesterday you said you would do it tomorrow. Are you going to lie to yourself today? Or are you going to be true to yourself today? If I told myself I was going to run today, or that I was going to, improve my fueling plan, did I lie to me yesterday? And that's a pretty powerful way to frame it. And it becomes much less overwhelming in its size. It's doable. It's actionable. I can do that one thing I promised myself I would do today. I don't have to do all the things I promised myself I would do to get from where I'm at to that massive goal at the end.
Mm-hmm. And it's like you said, it's step by step, and there is no that I love that what you said about yesterday, that if you keep breaking promises what you make to yourself, that is like what I love to say, that it's either, if you can't keep promises what you make to yourself, it's either you try to make too big promises, or you have to lower the bar and set those goals in a way that they, in the beginning, often they feel almost kind of like too easy, especially if it's a time like a new year or something, like, when you feel that motivation, it's there. And then it's very tempting to get started with something what feels like that this is what I would be doing, because it's most of the people know that we all imagine numbers that I should be doing. I tell my example, like a strength training, you should be doing it. But is it going to be 1 time in a week, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and whatever number you pick? I would probably in the beginning say that start a bit low. Like, obviously, if it's one time what you think, maybe going lower than that is not a smart idea. But if it's starting, if you think that is it going to be 3 times or 2 times, start with 2. Stick with it for a month, and then if it start to feel easy, you are not happy with the progress, then it's time to then change those goals. And it's really, the first goal is to keep promises what you make to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's well said.
So what is kind of the biggest misunderstanding people have about change?
Yeah, a lot of my doctoral research looked at the impact or the collision between beliefs and practices. And so I was looking at educators, and frequently in teaching, we teach the way we were taught. It's referred to as the apprenticeship of observation. If I've spent 12 years or 15 years, how many ever years, as a recipient of learning from a teacher, from my youngest years all the way through college. Excuse me, you have to edit that out. If I've done that, I have viewed teaching in many different forms from many different people, but I've developed some beliefs about what it is a teacher does. What's their role in the teaching and learning process? What's my role in the teaching and learning process as a learner? We also have that same experience in athletics and coaching. We have an apprenticeship of observation. If I'm a basketball player, I've got coaches all along the way. If I make it all the way to the NBA and then I become a coach, I've got some conceptions, some beliefs about what a good coach does, what a bad coach does. So where the challenge lies is when our knowledge about something collides with our beliefs about it. If I know in my heart that the best coaches are transformational leaders and they are able to cultivate a relationship with their athlete, and there's give and take, and they get to know their athletes as people, But all I've ever experienced is transactional leaders that say performance matters and they're drill sergeants and they are taskmasters and, disciplinarians. That creates a dissonance in my mind because I believe it in my head, but I don't know how to execute it in my practice. And so what I looked at in my work was if we really want to change the practice, we can't just work to educate the knowledge, because head knowledge will just generate confusion and in some instances disappointment. I'm frustrated because I know that this is a better thing, like it's knowledge, head knowledge, but I don't possess the ability to execute on it. And so what we looked at was, can we fundamentally alter the belief? Yeah, I want you to have head knowledge about what it means to train. What's a good set and rep scheme look like? What's good nutrition look like? That's head knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But if all you've ever done is work out in a sauna suit and use antiquated loading methods, I have to give you some examples, some actionable ways that you can take that head knowledge and put it into practice. So if I'm working, whether it's an athlete or a student or whatever, I'm trying to improve their knowledge, but I'm also trying to fundamentally impact their beliefs. If you don't really believe that intermittent fasting works, guess what? It probably won't. And I'm not making a case or a claim one way or the other on that. I just picked a random example. Periodized loading. If you are a strict linear progression person, periodization feels like idiocy the first time. Why am I lifting such light weight today, right? But if you've had a chance to interact with it and see it in practice and understand how a master practitioner that maybe you've never had before is able to put that into practice and you witness it with your own eyes, now we start to churn and cultivate belief. And now that knowledge becomes so much more powerful because it's not just something I'm holding and feeling guilty about how I don't know how to use it. It's become something that influences the way that I serve people. And that's really the most important part.
Wow, that was so well said and explained. So, Austin, let's go a little bit deeper on those beliefs and identity. So, because you talk a lot about identity shifts, what does that actually mean in simple terms?
Yeah. All too often, I'll say, we don't recognize when others are going through identity shifts. I worked as an athletic trainer in the college setting for several years, and my job was to take care of the physical and peripherally the emotional concerns of the student athletes who were there. They were eligible, they were pursuing their degrees, they were part of our team. When they graduate, when they are done, when they are out of eligibility or they're injured or they've otherwise chosen to leave the team, they are oftentimes transitioning from something they've done for 15, 17, 18 years of their, 97% of their life they've spent being a gymnast or a football player or a basketball player. And now suddenly, and with little to no support, that ends. It's done. You're no longer a gymnast or a football player or a basketball player. Now you are looking for work in something maybe related, maybe not. And for far too often, my job as an athletic trainer is to serve those who are still doing it. That's what I'm paid for. Mm-hmm. Where's the support for those people who are in that transition? And what I discovered was I initially thought that that's an athletics thing. I was a basketball player. I grieved the end of my career. I wanted to keep playing. I didn't have an opportunity to do that. And it was a massive, jarring, uncomfortable transition from athlete to former athlete. What I discovered is that's not unique just to athletes. Entrepreneurs go through the same thing. Artists, Broadway performers. I had one guest on my show who was the drummer for the band Semisonic, the song Closing Time, that was a global phenomenon. They closed the Grammy Awards one year, and they were on the road playing for a crowd of 50 people the next without a record deal. Like literally, they went from global rock stars to somebody that people wouldn't recognize. And that's a massive transition. Oh, yeah. That's not just an athlete thing. Artists, athletes, entrepreneurs, high performers of all types go through this jarring sensation. And the question becomes, what do we do with that? can I take the failure or the success or the setback, and will that allow me or prepare me and set me up for what's next? And that's where the idea for my show came from. We go from being unraveled and undone to recognizing that everything I've been through to this point has prepared me uniquely for this moment, and
Mhm.
I'm not finished yet. I am undone, and I'm going to take what I've learned and I'm going to magnify that and be better because of it.
Yeah, no, that is, I totally can understand it. It's also my background as a former ice hockey player. And then all of a sudden, when it ended, it was something like you said, I did it until age of 30, 31, 32. And all of a sudden you take it away and then you are not hockey player anymore. And then you are asking it what you actually are. And but it's not only like, of course, my example is in a sport world, but like you said, there are so many other like high achievers, or you get basically what you were always dreaming of like artists getting the big breakthrough, and then all of a sudden it stops for some reason, and then it's like that. What is the next? What is and this is the point where so many like I unfortunately I have so many friends who were also hockey players or athletes, and soon as they retired, they got into a huge problems in a
Yeah.
life, becoming addictions like alcohol, drugs,
Mhm.
gambling, stuff like that, and that is so kind of avoidable. But there is, I feel like there is so much support, or so less now. I think it's a bit better, but still, need is there for sure. A lot more than there is support available.
Yeah, there's a pretty well documented case of Drew Robinson, who was a minor league baseball player, really highly touted prospect in the San Francisco Giants organization. And during COVID, he actually attempted to take his own life and
Mm,
survived. He was depressed. He was isolated due to COVID. He had been bounced around from multiple teams, as often
mm,
happens in minor league sports.
mm,
And what I was describing about college athletes is even worse for professional athletes, because many times you may be uprooted and move multiple times within the same season.
mm,
And the medical team that's responsible for you, they don't know you. They can't. Like, I've literally had you as my hockey player for 2 weeks on my team, and you get traded somewhere else. And so in that midst, he became incredibly depressed, and he was concerned about his own welfare, and ultimately attempted to take his own life with a gunshot to the head, and he
oh,
survived. And so he's now become a powerful advocate for mental
oh
health and
yeah.
athletes, and talking about how the people who need the most support, particularly in emotional and behavioral well-being, are those athletes who are in the midst of this transition. Not only is their identity shifting, their geography is shifting. All their support structures are in flux. And so we as a society, as you know, if we're talking about Olympic athletes, then the governing body can take an active role in this, but we have to be able to support these people,
Mm,
because the traditional model just doesn't work. You know, if you've got a family physician back home and and you never leave home, you've got
mm,
healthcare and you've got a community. And when something's off with you, people recognize that. For an
yeah.
athlete who's in that midst of transition, maybe they just think you're kind of a jerk, and you're short with them, and they don't realize that you're normally this happy, fun loving guy. People can't
Mm,
recognize that because they haven't had a chance to really know who you are. So those identity shifts can land really heavily on a
mm,
lot of folks. But I would say, yeah, I've seen it in a lot of places. But your story as a professional athlete, or as, competing in levels like that, makes that population particularly vulnerable.
yeah. Yeah. No, but it's also like in many other areas. But how does then this identity affect to our daily habits, like training, eating, or showing up?
Yeah. I think it speaks to self-talk. And if who at my core, kind of going back to beliefs, if I believe that my health, my wellness, my performance is within my control, then my excuse me, then my actions are going to bear that out. I'm going to take the steps necessary to perform better and to be my best. On the other hand, if I feel like I'm a victim of circumstance. If oh, poor me, my genetics aren't what Turo's are, so there's no way I'll ever be as good as him. That's going to find its way. It's going to make its way into my daily routine. And so what I've tried to do for myself and what I try to counsel my clients and my students and my athletes to do is get specific. Mission, vision, values are always the starting point for me. Tell me who you are, why you are, and who you want to be. If you can define those things, so we talk about VMVs in our class. It's one of the first things I have my students do. What's your vision? Who do you think you were created to be? And let's put that in writing, not just again, like you said, we can undershoot for that, or we can so overshoot that it becomes a demotivator. We have to hit that fine balance. For me, I knew I wasn't going to play in the NBA. My vision might have been to play college basketball. Okay. What about beyond that? Well, I really want to inspire people. Okay. So my vision might be to inspire people who are willing to settle for less than their best. Okay. That's my vision. Then my mission, like, how am I going to execute on that vision? A vision without a mission is really just an assignment without a plan. Okay. If I've got an objective to accomplish something, but I don't have any action steps in between, then it just becomes I'm frustrated every day. I don't know how to get to 5% body fat. So that's my goal, but I have no idea how to get there. So I'm going to eat what I want and I'm never going to exercise. So the mission becomes where that vision starts to take on some, I say it starts to get some handles. We start to get some ways with which to execute on the vision. And then the values really speak to who I am as a human being. Like, how do I want to get there? And how do I want to inspire people along the way? So if I can get real specific about the vision, the mission, and the values, from there, I'm able to really just kind of drill down and lock in on what it is I'm setting out to accomplish. And it becomes much less daunting at that point. It becomes something that I recognize that a small decision, whatever that next decision is, people talk about this in the addiction recovery area a lot, where they're not promising to never take a drink again. They're promising themselves that I'm not going to take a drink today, or maybe even this afternoon, or maybe even this hour, wherever granularity I have to break that down to make that something I can feel like I can reasonably do, that can create success. If I tell you, Turo, like, I need you to get your PhD, and in order to do that, I need you to read a book a week, an entire book, 200 pages or more. That might be daunting, right? If instead I say, you know what, I need you to develop world-class knowledge in a field of your choice, and I want you to tell me what's doable. Can you read 10 pages a day? The whole 75 hard challenge got really popular. And one of those aspects was I'm going to read 10 pages a day. That's a good kind of sweet spot. I can't just read that on my way to the bathroom and out, but it also doesn't consume hours of my day. So I love how actionable that is. Drink a gallon of water. I can't just sit down and in one sitting drink a gallon of water. I've tried a couple of times pretty close to that, and it's not a pleasant experience. I have to be purposeful about hydration throughout the whole day in order to hit that target of 1 gallon. And that's as I'm talking, like, that's a pretty good example of how we recognize the actionable chunks. If I drink a cup of, I've got a 16-ounce bottle. If I drink one of those an hour, by the end of the day, I'm pretty close. If I haven't done that at all, and now I got to chug that whole thing, it's going to be a long night of getting up and my stomach hurt. Like that's an illustration of this concept, but it can be applied to other things. Recognizing what are my actionable chunks, and then just executing on those things.
And then, like, because it's really, like you said, going, like, breaking it into like a micro goals and making it sound easy. Of course, like to making that change, what we will talk a little bit later, is to not make them, not take too many of them. Like obviously,
Yeah.
if you take even they are easy things, but you have 100 them per day, it's chances are that you are not gonna execute all of them. But
Yeah.
then there's what I hear. I wanted to hear your take on it. Like, 'cause, what often happens is that people go back to their old habits,
Mhm.
even they have had a strong start. Why do you think that this is happening?
What a great question. I think we do tend to regress to uh, the level of our discipline. And if I'm really trying to integrate a new habit, I have to recognize that in order to make that normed, it's going to take time. Okay. And so kind of the old guideline is it takes at least 3 weeks, 3 to 5 weeks, oftentimes, in order to turn something into a habit. I can remember when I first started exercising, it was so I grew up in a really rural community. We didn't even have a weight room in our high school. So weightlifting and resistance training for me came later in life, which is it's an aside, but it's great because I can set PRs even at my own age because I wasn't lifting heavily in my athletic prime, right? So long story short, the the ability of a person to recognize their own role in this process is is for them to take the initiative. Okay, I want to set this habit of exercising every day. I have to just normalize it from the start. This is going to start out really easy. Okay, the first day is probably the easy. I'm motivated. I'm ready for the new me. My life is going to take on a new look. I'm going to look better. My clothes are going to fit better. All of that is, if we're to graph that out, that motivation is high. Where does it start to wane? When I'm doing the work and I'm not seeing the results. And in psychology, we talk about this as the trough of despair. If we were to graph out, like I'm looking at a graph of my results. If my 1 rep max on a particular lift, initially it actually goes down.
Mm.
I'm weaker after a big, especially if I'm undertrained. My first workout or two, if I were to 1 rep max test you after 2 workouts, your strength capacity would actually decrease. That's a normal
Mm.
response. We know that. For a novice lifter, they don't know that because they've never done it before. And now they're disappointed. So all that motivation that was peaked and heavy and high and they were excited about, now it's like, well, what the hell am I doing this for?
Mm.
This is hard work. All these things are heavy. I've got more laundry than I've ever had. Like everything about this is hard and it's making me weaker. Why on earth would I continue to do that? Because they've never saw that through to the other side where the adaptation starts to occur. So physically, it comes in two flavors. First, there's the neurological adaptation. That comes pretty quickly. Think about that like the wiring in your house. I can get dramatically stronger really fast, and that's a result of neurological adaptation. Now, where the real strength comes takes longer. The physiological adaptation, the changes in my musculature those are structural changes. So if the neurologic is the wiring, then the structural is the walls. That's
Mm.
the components we're talking about, the skeleton and the muscles. And that process takes much longer to occur. And so what I see is initially that graph is really steep. And then, if I can make it to that point, now I'm pretty motivated because I'm actually seeing my strength is improved, but I don't look that much different in the mirror because nerves don't change my appearance.
Mm.
If I can push through that barrier, now the physiological starts to take over and now my clothes start fitting better. Now I look a little different. Now my wife squeezes my arm when I walk by. Like those are some things that are occurring
Mm.
on a macro level. But oftentimes people abandon the process because they don't recognize that the success lies a little bit further down the road.
Mm.
And so it's really important, especially for someone who's never done this before, to normalize that. For someone that has done it before, now we've got to tap into that. We've got to remind you that, hey, you remember the last time you trained consistently? Do you remember how sore you were initially? That's coming
Mm.
again. Don't run from it. Embrace it. Know that you're going to be sore, but also recover well. Creatine. There are things we can do to try to minimize that. but we want to normalize it so that you're able to push through. So habit really does, to me, boil down to some pretty actionable mental, I won't call them hack, but just some normalization of this is going to be hard. And just like I said, if the hard part for me is putting on my gym clothes, I recognize that that's what I'm trying to summon my energy to do. Same thing's true in terms of habit. Okay, 2 weeks in is the hard part for me. So
Mm.
I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to do these things, but I recognize that 2 weeks from now, it's going to be harder to put on those clothes than it was today.
Mm.
And I'm going to bolster myself for that. Maybe write yourself a note of encouragement today for you 2 months or 2 weeks into the future and say, hey, Turo, I know that 2 weeks from now, you're not going to want to go into the gym, but I
Mm.
love you. I care about you. I want what's best for you.
Mm.
Turo, 2 weeks from now, you can do this. Get your ass
Yeah.
in the gym. And that's a trick you can use so that you recognize that I'm doing this for a bigger purpose.
Mm.
In the moment, the pain feels overwhelming, but I have to recognize that on the other side of that pain is the person that I'm trying to become.
Yeah. That's so well said. I love that advice, and because it's like you said that often that motivation. It's especially if you are starting something new, motivation is always high. You are there, but like you said, it's usually, from my experience, it's 2 to 4 weeks. Around that time, it depends on person. It could last a bit longer, but around there, it becomes harder. Like especially if something happens in a life, and that is totally normal thing, and you have to normalize that. If you have written that note, and you know already that is your expectation when you are starting, that okay, now this feels easy, but then you have kind of already that backup plan, or you have notes for yourself when it happens, and what is the action plan then when it gets harder, because it will. It's not matter of if, it's matter of time when
Yeah,
it's getting
absolutely.
harder. And I love that writing yourself a note, or planning even some emails. There are so many ways how you could
Yeah.
do it, like sending yourself a scheduling email for 2 weeks from now, and telling you that, this is uh, for my future self, an email. And those are always great ways to actually do it.
Yeah.
So what is then when we talk a little bit like when that life is changing, and there is maybe you get kids, you have a busy period at work, stress, you are aging, and your old routine stops working. What happens at that moment?
Mm, another great question. Uh, I guess the question becomes, do we blindly continue to follow the old plan that maybe isn't serving us? That's not me. I'm a data guy. Analytics is kind of baked into what I do. If the results start to trickle off, then I start dialing the knobs a little bit. If I can identify the source of that. So oftentimes in males, we see, testosterone levels are frequently pointed to as,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you don't have those same levels. You're not going to get the same kind of response in terms of lean muscle that you would have at 25. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I can try to medicate that if I want. TRT injections are a thing. There are some strategies I can take. The time that I work out is actually a pretty critical determinant of testosterone release post exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So I could start to experiment with, as long as my schedule allows it, maybe my morning workouts aren't doing it like they should. Maybe I'm going to start exercising in the afternoon or the evening. Same thing with nutrition. As my resting metabolism starts to downregulate a little bit, maybe I can't eat the same portion sizes that I once did. So I really do lean on the data, and
Mm-hmm.
that really begins and ends with, am I even collecting it to begin with? Am I looking at what my 1RMs are? Am I monitoring my body composition? Am I tracking my habits? And unless I've baselined that, then I really have nothing other than just kind of this gnawing cognitive, this feeling that I'm not doing the right things, but I don't have any data to drive that on. If you get in your car and it feels like it's not going quite as fast as it should because, there's something wrong with your engine, but you don't have a speedometer on the dash, you just kind of feel like maybe you're not getting the performance. The
Mm,
gauges are what allow you to really determine with a high level of precision, like, oh, wow, my car's actually overheating. I'm looking at that temperature gauge.
mm,
Maybe I've got a coolant problem. Or I look at, the oil pressure. Maybe I've got something wrong. So those gauges allow me to determine what's the source of my lack of performance. I
mhm,
think people could do the same thing. What are your gauges? What are you looking at? We should be
mhm,
tracking sleep. We should be tracking things like body composition. We should be tracking things like our 1RMs. And when we start to see those things change for better or for worse, that allows us to make a much better informed decision on what I can
mhm.
do to counter that.
Yeah. I'm curious to know what kind of data you are tracking for yourself and for your health.
Yeah. So I use an app called Lose It, which is a nutritional tracker. So that allows me to track kind of overall caloric consumption and macros.
Mm,
I really don't get too deep in the weeds. I really just look at what's my total caloric intake, and then I really try to look at, you know, two two or so grams of protein per pound of body weight is kind of the
mm,
target, and that's hard. I'm a big guy, so getting as I said too, a gram of protein per pound of body weight. So I'm
yeah.
250 pounds, 250 grams of protein takes a lot of effort. And
Oh
I
yeah.
rarely actually hit that target.
Yeah.
So if I can hit 200 grams of protein, it's a pretty good day. I've been pretty disciplined. The mouth discipline
Yeah.
is where I needed to be. And again, for me, one of the biggest problems was breakfast, where
Mm,
I didn't have time to cook egg whites and do all these things. So I use a liquid. It's a powder meal replacement. It's not a protein powder, but there's about 40 grams of protein,
mm,
400 calories, and it gets me started on the right path. So if I've got to
mm.
get 200 grams of protein in, if I can knock 40 out at breakfast,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
I'm,
gonna be
I'm
hard.
making some progress.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I'll do. I use a workout app that allows me to kind of track my 1RMs and all the major lifts. So I kind of monitor that. I also use a Hume body composition scale, and
Yeah.
it will give you pretty precise data. I don't know whether or not it's like research grade accurate, but
Yeah.
total body water, lean mass by limb. So you can even tell like, okay, this arm is leaner than this arm,
Hmm.
and that can be really important later in life for
Yeah.
things like balance and fall
Yeah.
risk, things like
Yeah.
that. So there are a number of tools and trackers. I don't use anything on, I mean, I have, but I don't consistently use like velocity based training measures. There are gadgets and gizmos you can put on the barbell to measure bar speed. If I
Hmm.
were a competitive athlete, I'd probably
Oh
lean
yeah.
in much heavier on those things. Force plate data has become very important, both for injury prevention and performance. Catapult data, the GPS trackers, and those kinds of things that measure like your peak velocity and the total ground you covered. Those are things that sports scientists will use.
Yeah.
I don't need that. I'm not training to be an elite athlete. I'm just looking
Yeah.
to inform my daily practice. So that's probably what I lean into the
Yeah.
most.
Yeah. Because I personally, I track obviously I have my sport watch, just a regular, nothing fancy, but just my amount of steps. I wake
Mhm.
myself every single day, like it's a body composition uh, scale where I get my weight, my body fat, visceral fat, and then my sleep. And obviously, with the nutrition wise, I have built my habits that way that I aim for 150, 160 grams of protein per day. And once I know that I hit that pretty much, pretty close, I'm more or less I'm okay. And it's just funny, like of course, like it's not for me. It's hard. Like I know some people like they like to track everything accurately, and then it's getting too much, or they get like tracking food, or especially women taking their jumping on the scale. It makes them like if you gain 2 pounds or 1 kilo scale weight in overnight, then it's like today is completely ruined. But it's also how you are using that data. Like for
Yeah.
me, taking like I don't have at the moment, I don't have any body composition goals. Like pretty happy where I am at. And it's basically just on my own performance, well-being, and trying to keep it up, keep the same. And but it's funny, like when you see those trends and you start to understand that why it's happening. Like if I look my average, I don't care. I couldn't care less about daily values of my scale weight. What interests me is my average weight per week. And when I look my average weight per week, and that is going in the direction I don't like, it's either going too much up or too much down, then I usually understand. Then I start to look at, okay, why is this actually happening? And then often it could be that, okay, maybe with the nutrition I haven't been as accurate or as disciplined as I should be, or getting a little bit loose with that, or just looking your sleep, or is the average, how is the average sleep, how is sleep quality, how is amount of average steps what you are taking. And if you see trends that, okay, was a little bit different week, average steps went down like 2,000-3,000 per day, and at the same time sleep was suffering, so you don't have to wonder why there is some trends going in a scale weight or something. So it's all these tools. When there is like for normal people, of course, for athletes there is so many other things what you can measure, what you can do, but it's just also like how to use actually those tools, and depending of course on your goals and what things are important for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the fidelity of your data is important. Like you said, a scale really doesn't tell us the whole story. There's recomposition occurring. I can look dramatically different at 235, depending on how I've been taking care of myself. And so if all I ever do is step on a scale, that is really a limited piece of data. So we're using something like these body composition. I had this happen myself. And I think also we have to recognize I'm not an elite athlete. I'm not training for the Olympics. If I hold myself to the standard that I used to have, I'm almost setting myself up for demotivation and for failure. I had a nagging knee injury. We had just moved. There were just a lot of changes in life, and my workout habits had suffered. And so I said, all right, I'm rededicating, I'm getting back on the wagon, and I'm going to do better. So I started tracking my caloric intake like normal, started exercising. And after, I don't weigh daily, so kudos to you, but I don't find that is a motivator for me. So if I weigh once a week, I can trend and track my data.
Mm-hmm.
So after the first week of kind of recommitting, really no changes. I'm like, well, that's frustrating. That kind of sucks. Like, I'm putting in the effort. I want to see the results. After 2 weeks, the metrics were actually improved, but my weight had gone up by 2 pounds. I'm like, I'm in caloric deficit every day according to my app, and I have gained 2 pounds in 2 weeks. If that's all the data I had and I'd never worked out, of course I would say, well, what the hell am I doing? I can do other things with this time that are easier and get the same or better results than I gained 2 pounds. But when I went in and looked at the data, my body water was improved. My lean mass had gone up. My body fat had gone down. Like, my body was recompositioning. And in that process, I weighed a little bit more. It was probably more water that I had retained, but all my lifts were heavier. I felt stronger in the gym. The same load that I had 2 weeks ago felt lighter today. So those changes were there. But if I didn't have the fidelity to really kind of tease that out, the bottom line is I would have been disappointed. So that was an eye opener to me that I need to find the data and the dashboard that gives me usable data, not overwhelm. I don't want to be so buried in numbers that I'm constantly collecting data and I don't know what to do with it. But it can't be so blunt like weight that it doesn't really give me nuance into what's really occurring.
Yeah, and if you like, what I see with the clients is the best way still is to if your goal is to change, for example, body composition, just taking pictures and tape measurements. Those are like, and those you don't need to do every single day or not even weekly, but every once in a while, pictures, especially in the beginning when you take like, I just literally talked 1 hour ago with my clients who we have been working now 5 months together, her weight is still exactly the same as in the beginning. But when you look the pictures and take tape measurements, there is like 4 centimeters less on hips, belly. From pictures, huge difference, but the scale weight is the same. And I thought that you can congratulate yourself to taking those pictures, even like most of the people, they don't enjoy taking pictures from themselves, but she did it in the beginning. And now, of course, at this point, if you are like you think that you work out, you have been consistently working out, you have been eating healthy diet, doing things what you should be doing, but then you see that why the hell am I even doing it? Because the scale weight, if that would be the only way to measure the progress, you wouldn't see any difference, and
Right.
why what is the point even doing it? So it's really about finding those ways to measure your progress, and not only one way to measure it. It's there are so many different
Yep.
ways to
Right.
measure it.
Yep.
So what is like? Because we talk a little bit about life changes and those breakdowns. So why do so many people feel like that they have kind of lost themselves in that phase when something happens, or when something what they have done previously is not working anymore?
Yeah. I refer to this as a purpose storm. In endocrinology, there's this idea of a thyroid storm, and the endocrine system is like the chemical messenger within the body. And
Mm,
if the messaging system goes haywire, then it's predictable that everything else is going to go haywire. If the post office suddenly just completely shut down and lost its ability to send packages and parcels places, there would be calamity, right? In the midst of a purpose storm, we kind of have a similar experience where I thought I was on the track to be this elite athlete, or I thought I was going to be the successful entrepreneur, or fill in the blank. Whatever I thought didn't happen. And so, in the midst of that, it's disorienting, it's jarring to feel like, okay, if what I had put in that position of vision was wrong, or it's suddenly outside of my control, and that vision can't be, then there's like a vacuum. What's going to take its place? And so I can go from feeling assured and working toward a goal to feeling like, well, what now? Like, what do I do? I don't know anything different. And consistently, athletes have explained that to me, where they trained their whole life to be a professional baseball player and got so far, and then once that was gone, in the moment, in the midst of that, you're not thinking about how the skills that you honed as a professional baseball player could transition into a career. You're not thinking about how, you know what, I know how to show up on time. I know how to work on a team. I know how to commit to a long-term goal and see it through. Those are all skills that were honed in sport. And now I can use them in an office, or I can use
mm,
them as a coach myself, or any number of things. But in the midst of that, in the storm, it's impossible to really see that. So where I really try to lean in is, first call it out, normalize it. Like, it's going to suck. It's disorienting. You're going to feel blind for a time.
mm,
And that is completely normal. From there, recognize that the clouds will start to split. You'll start to recognize that the end of one thing also can facilitate the beginning of another. And if I would have been able to just speak my life into existence, I probably would have chosen an easy path. I probably would have chosen a path that wouldn't make me best situated to serve other people. It would have just been all wins and gold medals and victories, right?
mm,
But the process of adversity and failure and setback actually formed me stronger so that
mm,
I can do those things. I always say one of my favorite sayings is, a smooth sea never made a skilled sailor. And that adversity and that setback that I have to train through makes me better equipped for whatever's coming next. So if I can recognize and call it out, it's perfectly normal to feel completely unmoored in that moment, to feel like you are
mm,
adrift at sea and totally alone. That's normal. Okay. Um, Also normal, within a few days, I hope, you're going to start to feel a little lighter. You're going to understand that um, the closure of that door behind you doesn't have to be something that you grieve. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still sad to be an empty nester. Like I miss the days when I got to go to baseball games and choir concerts and all those things. I can't do that anymore. But I can be so caught up in grieving that past that I don't recognize what I've got right in front of me. Like, what's my purpose now? Who can I serve today? And who am I better equipped to serve because I've been through that process? If I apologize, I didn't ask you about your family, but if you're a dad right now and you've got kids at home, I'm equipped to help you navigate
Mm-hmm.
the next few years of your life because I've been through it. And that's really what
Mm-hmm.
we're about. That's what I love about sport is it allows us to come together with a common purpose and we can speak life into one another because of the way we've been through things that maybe the person beside us hasn't. So call it out, recognize it's going to suck for a little bit, but then recognize that you're unraveling is actually setting the stage for you to piece it back together. Behind me, let's see, right there, that plate you see, that's a kintsugi plate. That's a Japanese uh,
Mm-hmm.
piece of art. And I love the beauty of the idea. In Japan, broken art became art itself. It was pieced back together using gold in the adhesive that glued it back together. So what you end up with is something that was initially broken and could have been thrown away is actually pieced back together in a way that makes it unique and more beautiful than it was before. And that's kind of what adversity does for us
Mm-hmm.
is it can break us, but in that breaking, we can piece our life back together in such a way that we're more valuable, more useful, better equipped for what comes next, as opposed to if it would have just been easy and we had never been broken to begin with, what did we learn from that?
Mm. So well said. So what is then if somebody like this is like more like a sort of purpose things, but if to someone who want to change their identity and not only behavior, what how do you do it? And is there something like what small shift someone can make even this week still?
Yeah. I wish it were so easy. I do kind of go back to my previous answer. Start with your vision, your mission, your values.
Mm,
If you haven't taken the time to explicitly carve those out, do it. And then, excuse me, even if you have, take the time to revisit them because we are not static organisms. We are constantly growing and morphing and changing. Our circumstances are always evolving. And so that mission, vision, value is going to change over time. So I usually try to revisit mine at least once a year. My values are printed into canvases, artwork on the wall in my office. And that's an accountability step for me.
mm,
My first value is serve others first. And
mm,
there are days when I'm tempted to want to serve myself first. And I see that art staring me right back in the face that says, you said the person you were going to be was others first. You said, so keeping yourself accountable, I think is a key, be purposeful, Out,
mm,
outline the path. And then again, that's strategic and purpose. The relentless in pursuit is just execute on it. And like you said, if I set the thresholds far too low, that's not a motivator. Like if my goal is to be able to beat a third grader one-on-one in basketball, okay, I'm pretty sure I can do that. But what have I gained out of that process? And that's a silly example. Likewise, if the goal is too lofty, it becomes a demotivator. If my goal is I want to run a marathon at the end of next week, can't do it. Like it's not going to happen. And all I'm going to do is either become injured or demotivated or both in the process. So there is the sweet spot of being able to set targets that are doable, but also motivated in the process. So, and that's just like anything, that's trainable. My ability to set a good goal is a trainable skill.
mm,
If I'm never setting and tracking my goals, I don't get better at it. So that's where the data comes in.
mm. And this is a good bridge to for next and last thing. What I wanted to talk is a little bit about self-sabotage, because now let's say that you actually, you have all these vision boards, you are there, things are going well, but then people often start to sabotage themselves when everything is going well. Why do you think that is happening?
I think it goes to belief. We talked about how belief informs practice and the interaction between knowledge and belief and how they influence execution. If I don't fundamentally believe, and imposter syndrome is frequently tossed
Hmm.
around, if I don't believe that I could be successful at such, when I start to get close to that, you're going to start to see evidence of that self-sabotage. I'm going
Hmm.
to start to withdraw. I'm going to stop putting in the work that was getting me there. And so I always go back to belief. You, if you're treating the symptoms and not the root cause, then you're not really treating the disease. So
Hmm.
if I can look at you and tell that maybe what you're executing on is less than what you had said for yourself, I can I can come up with some strategies to help you get better at tracking your food log or at getting to the gym. But if there's something deeper, and this is where my wife being a counselor comes in, I'm a performance coach. She's a counselor. She's trained in ways of digging at, eliciting past traumas and pathologies that need to be sorted through and worked through. If fundamentally I have a belief that I'm not worthy of being a success, that's a much different problem than I'm just not disciplined enough to execute on it. And so
Hmm.
professional mental health can be a valuable aspect to this. If you've got something that's limiting you from your past, then that's something you need to work through. That's not something that I'm qualified or credentialed to do, but someone like my wife would be.
Yeah,
So you have to recognize that sometimes the work takes more. It takes a team, kind of that old adage, it
yeah.
takes a village to raise a child. To be elite, you need, I need a tax professional. I don't want my tax person crafting my workouts any more than I want the
Hmm.
person crafting my workouts giving me mental health advice because they're
Yeah.
not trained for those things. So
No, absolutely.
identifying who your people are is really a critical step. And then, trust them and cultivate that relationship.
Hmm. So well said. So if if just couple simple tools. So if someone is having a bad day and you feel like that there is that self-talk is coming in and uh, what someone could do when you start to recognize that now that self-talk is coming in and you are really having a bad day and what what you would recommend in those
Yeah.
cases?
It's going to sound silly. Have you ever seen the movie The Lion King, the Disney animated Lion King? Have you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a scene there where Simba, the would-be king, he's living like tragedies happen. Mufasa's
Hmm.
died. Simba goes off, lives in the wild. He's got some free-loving friends. Like you mentioned this after hockey, like you've probably got some teammates that are like Simba, where they've got some party friends and they're just living the good life,
Hmm.
Hakuna Matata. But when he's doing that, he's not being the king, right? He's
Hmm.
not living in the purpose he was created for. And it takes a wake up call from, the ghost of his dad. But I love
Hmm.
what Ghost Dad says to me. He says, remember who you are. And he says that
Yeah.
more than once. And he kind of leaves him with that lingering kind of ethereal, remember who you are. If I lose sight of who I am, if I abandon the notion that I was created for good, to be good, then I've not remembered who I am. And remembering who I am in that tough day, I'm having a tough day today. I've got some difficult conversations coming my way. And Turo, I'm thankful to you because answering this question is empowering me to remember who the hell I am and to walk proudly in my purpose. Because without that, I would be tempted to dial it back and to
Yeah.
be less than and not walk in that purpose. So maybe the strategy is, to remember who I am, maybe I just write it down. I've got some Post-it notes that I'll stick in my desk drawer or art on my wall. I need to fix this because I've mentioned this more than once. Right behind this camera, there's a piece of art my son drew when he was 3 years old, and it's a little stick figure guy, and he says "no working," and it's misspelled, but it's a reminder to me that I invested the best I could in that season. My son was desperate for his dad's attention. He wanted him to stop working and be with him.
Nice.
And that piece of art today reminds me I don't have the chance to be who he needed me to be today because he's 20 years old. But there is a purpose in front of me. There's someone I need to serve just like I should have served him. And without that reminder, I might be tempted to be self-serving. I might be tempted to do less than, but I can't afford that. I have to remember who I am, and that helps me. So I don't know if that helps you.
Of course, that's so well said. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think this is a great way to end this. Thank you. Like I think I could keep talking so much longer. Unfortunately, time limitations come in, and I don't want to keep you too long. So, Toby, where people can find you, how to connect with you? Please share everything you want to share about yourself.
So the show is Becoming Undone. The website is undonepodcast.com. That's the best place. I also have a coaching app that is built on these same principles called scienceofthecomeback.com. That's available for anyone. My website is tobybrooksphd.com, and all my contact info is there. So happy to help in any way. Whether that's a formal coaching relationship or maybe you just need an encouragement. I'm happy to, you don't have to pay me money in order to allow me to work in my purpose. My mission and my vision is clear. I want to help and inspire as many people as I can. And if this message resonated with someone, I'd love to connect.
Oh, that's amazing. And likewise, it's usually those people like I don't expect anything in change if someone ever writes an email or anything, I do what I can. And I love the way how you are thinking and giving that purpose of helping others before yourself. And thank you so much for this conversation. I will put all links to show notes and talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Turo.
Hold up, friend. Do you love Fit Me Turo Fitness podcast? If so, the best way to say thank you is to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review on iTunes. I know every podcaster wants you to leave a review, but it's because those reviews help the podcast to reach more people. I truly want to know what you think, and if this particular episode resonated with you, would you also please share it? Either send a link to someone who you think will find it valuable, or take a screenshot and post it into your social media and tell your friends and family why they should listen it. Make sure you tag me so I can hear your feedback and give you a little love. And if you aren't already following me on Instagram or TikTok, that's the perfect time to hit that follow button. Thank you for being here and listening to Fit Me Turo Fitness podcast.